2 years, thousands of hours, and hundreds of failed runs. This mode was never meant to be played like this. It's built for 5 players. 1 year and 8 months ago, I created a new profile with a single goal: to max the hardest dungeon without any help. Back then, I wasn't sure how it was going to end. So before it did, I want to show how it all started. I wasn't going in blind. I already had plenty of experience with the game, and honestly, I had always enjoyed solo runs. But there was a reason nobody committed to them. Alone, every mistake costs you, not just mechanically, mentally. Starting from nothing meant I couldn't step into dungeons yet. Before the challenge could begin, I had to get the money for it. I spent a few days setting up farms and grinding coins. Soon enough, the profile was strong enough to try. Dungeons are split into 7 floors, each one more difficult and demanding than the last. From each completion you gain experience, unlocking level ups all the way to 50, which is my final objective. And the requirements ramp up really quickly. The first floor went smoothly, which was my first mistake. It gave me a dangerous amount of confidence. I quickly got put back into my place as I spent 25 attempts to complete the next floor, and that's after buying a new armor set. So now, with the grind starting to set in, I thought I need to get a little more consistent. I set out to unlock a new armor set through floor 3 and a proper weapon from floor 4. That's sort of where the pace shifted. Floor 5 was the first real wall. It wasn't just harder, it was slower. The map took twice as long to clear as usual, and the boss fight turned into 10 minutes straight of running and barely staying alive. Eventually, I was able to push through. I wasn't going to spend 15 minutes on every run though, so I needed a new strategy. Luckily, by now I could afford a setup for a better class. In turn, the runs sped up dramatically. While the upgrade was good, it wasn't good enough. I wanted to go even further. After my floor 6 completion, I unlocked and purchased a new expensive weapon. A flower? Surprisingly enough, it's actually pretty powerful. With damage no longer being the bottleneck, I locked in on getting Catacombs 24 and unlocking the final floor. After some time, I finally did it and could now go for the most powerful items in all of dungeons. At this point, I had reached the hardest normal floor, and I was still a little undergeared, so I had to be careful. Floor 7 is the longest fight so far. While floor 6 had 3 phases, here there are 4. Every single one is insanely punishing, especially towards solo players. Before even attempting it, I also had to change my setup. Once you pass clear, you lose access to basic mobility, so I needed new tools just to move around. Since surviving here will be an issue too, I also automated my pet swapping to access defense when I needed. With all the preparation and upgrades, I was ready to go for the completion. The clear itself wasn't anything special. Maxor went down quickly. Now, the second phase. This fight is especially annoying solo because you are expected to have one person distracting the boss and another stepping on a path to lower a crusher. And soon enough, it started going wrong. That wasn't surprising. I expected the first few runs to be simply adjusting and finding out what you can do to avoid dying. 8 minutes later, I was back. I managed to crush Storm once. I tried to do it again, but Storm did his lightning attack. With every pillar being lowered, you cannot survive without immunity items, so all I could do is leave the dungeon. The next run finally went better. I got through Storm, and going into phase 3, I thought I could do it. After all, I had done this part solo plenty of times before. I made it through most of the terminals, but right at the end, I played a little bit recklessly. I jumped into the lava without waiting for regeneration. The boss deals enough damage to one-hit you when trying to get past it, and I just used my only chance to survive that hit. There was no chance. When I finally reached that point once more, I changed my approach. I swapped to a different helmet, to hopefully have enough healing to outlast the damage from lava. This time, having immunity, I made it past the death barrier. But there was another problem. As a berserker with low stats, the Juju Shortbow was barely doing any damage. Goldor's Frenzy was closing in, and there was nothing I could do. The only idea left was to get one more of the invincibility items. I had 2 choices, one was way out of my budget, so I went with the other. I bought it immediately and went straight back in. Of course, there were more deaths, but eventually I reached terminals again. I made another mistake and used my invincibility item early. This time, it didn't matter. The Phoenix cooldown was short enough to save me. I also stopped relying on the bow and started using my weapon's ability instead, and suddenly, the damage was much better. After all these runs, I finally made it to the final phase of the fight. I died in the dumbest way imaginable, but at this point I was well over 3 hours into the session and I needed a break. The next day I came back. On the very first boss attempt, I actually did it. Thanks to the daily run and the first completion bonus, I gained a huge amount of experience. I unlocked Necron armor immediately, which was a set I'd be using for basically the rest of the profile. Even with the upgrades, I still died sometimes. But I got my second completion soon after. I even got closer to 300 score than last time. Over the next week I improved my gear and boss strategies a lot. With all that combined, I started getting the highest rank and over time I leveled up to Cata 30. Around this time I also started doing a little bit of mining progression. I knew moving on to Master Mode would require insane amounts of money, and farming alone just wasn't gonna cut it. Now with everything settled, the deaths happening less and less, it was time to just kind of grind. And soon enough, it paid off. Around 40 runs in, I had just obtained the first component of the arguably strongest and most versatile weapon in all of Skyblock, the Necron's Blade. A few weeks after starting my first floor 7 grind, I finished my 100th run. This was the very first time I had experienced something I didn't anticipate in this challenge, burnout. With all the weights you pull, every run being insanely long, the feeling of not wanting to play anymore gets stronger and stronger every minute. At this point I spent the entirety of April only to drop that scroll. So to get a little bit of rest from dungeons, I set out to get Enderman Slayer level 7 and unlock the Terminator. The most powerful archer weapon in the game, that unlocks a whole new branch of dungeons that I will be spending the most time in. The first step was seeing if I could actually kill the bosses at all. I put together a decent setup and tried a tier 3. It wasn't too bad, the damage was about as good as it can get with my gear and pet. Still, I wanted to improve it. I swapped from a baby Yeti to an Enderman pet. Yeti focuses purely on effective health, while Enderman trades some of that for extra damage. It was a bit of a risk, but it paid off. Boss times dropped to around a minute and I still wasn't dying. For some reason, I really wanted to push into tier 4s as fast as possible. One of my friends needed a rare drop from the same one, another agreed to help, and we grouped up. I tried doing a boss on my own first, but with my gear I had absolutely no chance. At the time, I convinced myself I wasn't getting carried. I was helping with the boss, not just standing there. Looking back, yeah, I was getting carried. We spent the entire day doing each other's bosses, and I made a lot of progress towards level 7. I also upgraded my katana so that I could at least contribute more than before. The next day, nobody was online, so I tried a boss solo again. It was way slower, but I didn't die. That was important. It meant that if I had to, I could hold my own. After 3 days of a mix of solo grinding and getting help from others, I finally hit Enderman Slayer level 7. At that point, I stepped away from dungeons completely and focused on farming. I still needed some coins before I could get the weapon I just unlocked. A week later, I had enough money. With that upgrade, Master Mode was finally within reach, which is a huge step forward and honestly, a nice change of pace. I went straight into my first Master Mode floor 3. I struggled at first, but I adapted quickly and got my first completion. Over the next few days I would keep running Master Mode floor 3 and some extra floor 7s to hopefully make more progress towards the Necron's Blade. Then something different started crossing my mind. Warning: the following section describes actions of a mentally insane individual and should not be replicated at home. For what's about to follow, I need to explain one of Skyblock's core mechanics, the election system. Every few days the community elects a new mayor. Two of them mattered for my profile. Paul, the dungeon mayor who buffs blessings, and the most broken one, Jerry. He increases all your stats by 10%. That sounds small, but because of how damage scales, it's a massive multiplier. Even better, every 6 hours he copies a random set of perks from another mayor. If he copies Paul during his term, your stats in dungeons go absolutely insane. Now do keep in mind he is a special mayor, which means he only appears every 4 months. And as you might guess, it was Jerry's turn. I started thinking about trying to complete the hardest dungeon in the entire game. I mean, you might be asking, why is this bad? Isn't it just more experience? At the time, the lowest level someone managed to solo this dungeon at, the world record, was 43, an entire 7 levels higher than mine, which is an enormous stat increase, and even that took them 4 months. However, what if under the best possible conditions you could output just enough damage per second to complete the dungeon? This is where blessings come in. They are stat buffs you pick up in each run, and they get a massive boost from Paul's perks. The drawback is, they are random. You can get lucky and have insane stats, or get unlucky and have no chance against the boss. So, from that moment, I set out to achieve the impossible. Solo M7 at Catacombs level 36. I had 12 days to farm as many coins as possible. For this kind of feat I needed a ton of new items. The worst part was, the best damage pet in the game, a golden dragon, was out of my price range, which puts me at a huge disadvantage. But that wasn't gonna stop me. Fast forward a few days, I stopped farming to get the level requirement along with the completions that I was missing at the moment. While I did some early master mode, at this point I had done it enough to get a little bit bored, and was looking for some entertainment in higher floors. I settled on Live It. This boss fight was hard too, but since it was purely damage based, I felt like I could find a strat for it. I quickly had the idea of using the Soul Eater enchant. Basically, if you kill a mob using that enchant, it grabs the strength of that mob, multiplies it and applies it to your next hit. There also just so happens to be a mob in dungeons that has insane strength. Meet Death Mites. The idea was to kill one before going into boss and then quickly finish the fight with the enormous damage. I went to try this out and surprisingly, it worked insanely well. At Kata 35 nobody would usually want you in their party for this floor, and yet I just found a strat to consistently solo it. After some runs, I finally reached Catacombs level 36. And of course the first thing I had to do was try M7. I mean, what did you expect? It went really well. 2 days before Jerry, I had enough money farmed to purchase the best helmet in the game for dungeons, and already had everything prepared to max it. So, it's finally time to get it. June 4th, 2024. It was time for the election to end. Now, I just hoped that the first mayor that Jerry copies would be Paul. Well, it wasn't. So because I had other things to do, I had to wait another day before even getting another chance for Paul. And then it was time to pray again. Well, that's not good. It turned out that the first poll is going to happen at 5 AM. And I had school at 8 AM, so there's no way I'm gonna... So I managed to enter the boss fight with power 19 x 5, and the damage was looking actually pretty solid. The furthest I got was phase 2 though, where I died to a lag spike. I didn't really manage to do anything after that, I sure wonder why. So I would be completely missing the next Jerry poll event because of the time it happens at. The only option left was the last poll. The odds were against me, but now all I could do is wait. I did some runs with just Jerry hoping to get somewhere, but it was way too hard to be reasonable. I logged on with really high hopes, and I wasn't disappointed. In one of the very first attempts, the best thing that could have happened took place. I got the rarest set of blessings possible, power 29 x 5. And I hit the limit, every buff, every blessing available, and still with the same gear. This run would prove whether months of preparation and hours of practice were enough. Once I got to phase 2, I was really able to tell just how insane this damage was. I managed to kill Storm without any problems, but now was the stressful part. If I got unlucky with terminals, I would fail the run to them, and I couldn't do anything about it. It was time for the phase that I thought would be the worst. I was doing fine at first. I managed to get Necron to frenzy pretty easily, but the worst part was still ahead of me. I felt kind of terrible in that moment. I wasn't able to kill Necron under the perfect conditions, and those were basically impossible to happen again in only 3 hours of attempts. I kept grinding out attempts, but it just wasn't fun anymore. The death in phase 4 really killed my motivation, and I still kept doing runs, but it was mindless. I didn't care about the outcome. I just did them knowing I won't be able to complete one. And then the time was up. My only chance was gone, and the next one was in 4 months. I realized that there was a reason this had never been done before. The reason being, it's not possible. And because nobody else was stupid enough to attempt it. I had to just let go, get at least Catacombs level 40 and come back with real gear. But there was already so much time sunk into this. I was still far away from Cata 37, so what if there was some way? I mean, I never thought of actually upgrading my gear. I just hoped all the buffs would be enough by themselves, even with my horrible stats. So I had an idea. I went back to the garden hoping to farm enough money for a golden dragon pet and 1000 magical power. If I got all that for about 3 billion coins, my damage would increase by over 50%. And theoretically, that's enough to complete the floor solo without relying on Jerry. So, I started the last-ditch effort to farm up all those coins before the next time Poe is elected. There's nothing that could possibly go wrong, right? 12 days after Jerry left the office, I've built up about 900 million coins out of the 3 billion. I found out Poe is being elected in 4 days, and I wasn't even halfway through the grind. So now there is a huge problem because I have absolutely no chance of farming 2 billion coins in just those 4 days. If I skip this poll, it could take months for him to be mayor again. It was either now or wait months. I picked now. But doing it this way, my plan would have to change. I'd have to throw away magical power upgrades in favor of the golden dragon. Over 1 billion coins was still a huge stretch for 4 days, but I had to at least try. I sold everything unused, which got me just enough coins to buy a max golden dragon pet, so now I just had to get the 1 billion coin bank. 2 days before poll, I knew I was only on pace for about 800 million by the time the election ended, so I did something slightly questionable. I hit max bank with an entire day left, so when poll started I had enough excess money to buy some small upgrades. It was finally time to start playing and hoping for the impossible to happen. In only an hour I was able to catch up to all the progress I made during Jerry, and was once again back in phase 4. Since I learned of my previous death, I stayed around the middle to be ready for the moment Necron started his frenzy. I thought I was doing everything correctly, but then I felt the same feeling of hopelessness as my last phase 4 death, but I realized it was still possible. I just had to put in the hours and make it happen. I reached Necron again later that same day. But there was a problem, my blessings were only power 19 times 5. It's on the lower side of blessings, which can get you killed really easily at this point. And I was ready. Not enough damage, yet another death. The next day I logged on with high expectations. If I got to phase 4 twice like the previous day, I'd have a really good chance of passing it. And somehow, it only got worse. I could not even get past phase 2 anymore. And when I finally did, I died in terminals for the first time ever. And then I did it again. I just couldn't get anywhere that day, and whenever I was about to, it happened again. At the very end, something I completely forgot about caught up to me. If I fail one more run past phase 2, I would level up to Catacombs level 37, permanently wasting the entire grind. All those hours, everything I've done, it all came down to the third day. The next attempt was the last chance I would ever get. I needed to focus. Against all odds, I got to phase 4 on the very last chance I had it while I was still Catacombs level 36. The pressure was on. For the first time in all these runs, I managed to shrink the second frenzy. I was finally going to complete phase 4. It happened. I passed it with just 4 hearts, a second away from death. And we finally did it, tens of hours, all for this. Or did we? As the Wither Lord is defeated, the floor opens up, revealing a whole new boss fight. The run wasn't over. Only one was left. Orange. I was really confused. What did I just die to? I did everything correctly. I avoided the middle. I used Wither Cloak whenever something was happening. And still, I was dead. It turned out it was a tiny fireball from the purple dragon. And somehow it dealt all of my health. Just like that, the last chance was gone. Kata 37. I kept trying anyway. I really wanted that completion, even though it didn't feel the same anymore. It wasn't gonna sound nearly as impressive as solo M7 at Kata 36. But if I managed to pull it off, it would still be something. Friday, June 28th, the final day. After another death at Necron, an hour and a half into the session, I entered what would become the final run. And it was done. After more than 15 hours of dying over and over again, and hundreds of hours of preparation, it was finally finished. And everybody enjoyed it as well. It was also really nice closure for my fail in the past. I finally got the completion I thought I had lost the chance to get, even if it wasn't quite what I wanted. After that, I finally slowed down. For the first time in a while, I was doing floors that actually matched my gear. About a week later, I hit Catacombs level 38, but the pace was completely different now. I also finally did something I've been putting off forever. setting up mining. To afford it, I used up all my bank, which locked me out of dungeons entirely, but I was ready to grind it back. By the end of the month, I had nearly regained everything. After such a long break, I was genuinely excited to return, and when I did, the difference was obvious. All the upgrades from the M7 grind actually showed. I spent the next few days on Master Mode Floor 5 for Catacombs experience, and by mid-August, Paul was selected once more. So I did something a little questionable again. I borrowed a Hyperion from my friend just to see how much of a difference it really made. It was huge. On the first day I got 2 completions. One of them was genuinely fast, especially for Catacombs level 38. By the second day of Paul I was already Catacombs 39. A few days later, Catacombs 40. At that point, one thing was obvious. I needed my own Wither Impact weapon. Borrowing one worked for Paul, but it felt wrong. The problem was the price, basically another full month of farming. Luckily, the Master Stars I had dropped gave me a head start. But then, a second implosion scroll dropped. And just like that, I could actually afford a Hyperion. I already had 2 scrolls, I had more than enough money for the third. Pulling out my bank again felt irresponsible, so of course I did it. Grinding Catacombs experience alone gets boring fast. I needed a new goal. That goal ended up being dragon skips. In Master Mode Floor 7's final phase, you normally kill dragons at their respective statues. Except, you have to wait for their scripted paths to finish. Dragon skipping ignores all of that. If you deal enough damage, you can kill the dragon before it ever leaves the statue. It's absurdly hard. I wasn't even close. But that didn't matter. It wasn't about doing it yet, it was about having something completely unreasonable to chase. Over the next few months the profile changed a lot. Catacombs 42, then 43. I got my first S+ run, 14 minutes and 28 seconds. At these stats it was way harder than it looked. I started measuring how close I actually was to a dragon skip. If I could push another 400 million damage in the same window, a skip might actually happen. I was already more than halfway there. As Paul came to an end, I hit Catacombs 44, and the timing couldn't have been any better. Jerry was up next. I wanted to see how far those stat buffs could actually push me. On the very first run, I hit power 29 times 5, the absolute maximum damage possible. As if that wasn't enough, Jerry's Perpocalypse was about to reroll. If it copied Paul, the damage would get even more ridiculous. So I waited. And it did. The damage felt unreal. The boss's health was melting at paces I wasn't used to seeing. I even killed a dragon by accident. I genuinely didn't realize I was dealing that much. And then it happened. My first ever dragon skip at Catacombs level 44. But I wasn't delusional. That run was perfect. Max blessings, Jerry, Paul, everything aligned. Under normal conditions this probably wasn't realistic. Still, it proved something. It was possible. From there, I kept pushing. With Jerry active again, I managed another purple skip. This time with worse blessings and no Paul buffs. The DPS wasn't insane, but it was a real skip without perfect conditions. I started experimenting more. Different setups, new optimizations. And the very next day, something I genuinely didn't expect dropped. A handle. The timing couldn't have been better. The long-awaited foraging update was right around the corner, and now I had more than enough money to fully dive into it. The momentum didn't stop there. During the next Jerry pull cycle, I landed an orange skip. Then, another one on much lower blessings. By the end of Jerry's time in office, I had pushed to Catacombs 47. And right after he left, one of the biggest updates Skyblock had seen in years finally dropped. The foraging update. This was a massive turning point. New attributes opened options to push my damage higher than ever. I maxed as many attributes as I could afford, and went back to running dungeons. And it worked! My first skip without any major buffs landed. That's when I discovered Lifeline, a multiplicative buff that activates below 4 hearts. With a certain equipment piece, I could disable all regeneration and stay at 4 hearts for entire phase 5s. It wasn't easy. I had to swap setups mid-fight, optimize positioning, and play perfectly, but it worked. And then, as if all that progress wasn't already absurd, the next thing that happened might genuinely be one of the luckiest runs in the entire history of Skyblock. I cannot even begin to describe how this felt. I closed in on Catacombs 48, only 2 levels left.
Who's Craft Boss's mango proof profile? Mango. What about it? Healer level 0? What about this? What's so interesting about? I mean, I guess it's weird that he's healer and tank level 0. How does that make sense? It's cause he's soloed everything? How'd he do that? He's just like me. He does nothing but carry all the weight that his team just leaves on him.
As the last day of Paul began, I was starting to feel the mental pain of doing 12 solo M7 runs a day, way more than usual. I still tried to pull through and do well, but nothing actually happened other than the usual. Well, until the last run. I finally got a shot at a perfect phase 5. Oh well, happens. Around there, everything sort of came crashing down. Insane amounts of runs I had done burned me out so badly that even getting a room or puzzle I didn't like was enough to make me close the game. It just became horrible. I still did a few attempts per day, but I would almost never finish all 5 dailies. I slowly stopped playing altogether. Half a month later, while I still didn't quite feel like playing, I had to force myself. At any moment now, Paul could come back to office, and I really wanted to experience the next one with the stat increase from Catacombs 49. It was really hard to keep myself playing, and the fact that I somehow kept dying didn't help at all. But finally, the pain ended. Catacombs 49. Sometime later, Paul showed up in the election room once more. I knew this would be the last time I'd ever see him on this profile. So I decided it was time to go all out. I even bought a full foraging setup, chopping trees just to get the smallest possible damage boost from level ups. While it sounds funny, it was realistically one of the only things I could do to improve my damage. I had accumulated so much profit from the drops that I could max every little bit of my setup, other than the tiniest increases that cost billions. So, I waited. The election ended and I got back to running. It seemed like the burnout problem didn't go away, maybe it even got worse, but I found a way around it. Well, kind of. To make it fun for myself, I switched things up a little and tried to finish the dungeon in the fastest time I could. This was absolutely horrible for efficiency because I kept leaving the dungeon if it was going badly. In a 5-hour session I barely finished my daily 5 runs, but in the end I got all I wanted, a new personal best. By the end of Paul, I was officially halfway through Catacombs 49. That's when it hit me, I was close to finishing. For almost 2 years this grind felt endless, like something I'd always be in the middle of. Yet suddenly, the end was close. And knowing I wouldn't have to do this anymore felt wrong. So I set one final goal. I wanted to push as close to the final level as possible before Jerry returned in early October. I just wanted one last chance to experience dungeons with damage on a full party's level. As Paul left the office, I felt like it would only get worse. But strangely, not having him was a relief. No resets, no taking forced risks, 5 runs a day, then logging off. For the first time in a long while, the grind felt sustainable. As the days went by and the profile neared its end, even just thinking about what it would feel like made my heart race. This grind was quiet most of the way, but for the final attempt I'm bringing the noise back. The friends who've been supporting me through all of it. Now, it's time. This is a little stressful. Oh my god.
Are you ready, Crab Boss?
No,
No,
absolutely
no.
not.
That's Today's a big day! Stop hitting me.
Does this mean I have enough time for another bridge game? Oh, you want to... Okay. No, this map's bad.
I'm ready for you. Let's glitch and run in.
My hands are shaking, what?
Why are you
It was,
shaking
it
so
was
much?
already folding under zero pressure over a bridge duel.
No,
It's not that serious, Crab Boss. Not to shake so much, bro.
Damn.
How bad is he shaking?
You see how much he shakes his hand? Zen, see how he's look at him. Twitching like crazy. Look at him. What is this?
Holy shit.
No.
Oh, you just
What the?
damn.
Yeah, no, okay.
Holding.
That's enough.
What?
Crab Boss won, GG.
What do you mean that's enough? What?
It's time for
was 2-2.
Skyblock.
Crab Boss won, GG.
He was 2-2.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that, buddy.
How? Why are you shaking so
Why are you
fast?
Ignore that. Ignore.
Bro, calm down, calm down.
No.
Move. One more. One more. One
GG.
more.
Imagine Han doing the last one.
99.5.
He's gonna be like the first one person to solo Cat 50, right?
Yes. I'm pretty sure. The entire way,
No
yeah.
one else has done that.
Yeah.
I
Like,
don't- anyone's- No one's even close, I'm pretty sure.
No one's stupid enough to attempt it at all.
Yeah. Gonna lifeline and died to the primal fear in the last phase.
I don't think it's Storm that you should be worried about. I think it's.
Yeah, it's still there.
Or the primal fear.
That's it, man.
Let's
That's it.
go,
That's
dude.
No way.
it. Yeah.
That's plus 2, crazy.
And after over 1,000 dungeon runs, 2 years all by myself, I'm leaving the Catacombs one last time. For so long this grind was all I could think about, but not anymore. And it's weird. I don't need to log on tomorrow, or anytime soon. Oh shit.